So everyone's talking about the iPad Pro at the minute for obvious reasons, but today I want to talk about the iPad Mini. So regular viewers of this channel will know that I absolutely love the iPad Mini 6. I think it's one of Apple's greatest ever products. The usability, the portability, the speed, design, the ergonomics, everything about this iPad Mini 6 is just brilliant. Now, if you contrast that with what's happened recently with the release of the iPad 10th generation and also the new iPad Pros, which have gone down like a you-know-what in a crowded lift, this just wins so many awards in my book. It's simple, it's uncomplicated, yes, it's pricey, and it does have some issues, which I'll get onto later. But what you probably want to know is, am I still using it as much as I was before? And 1 year into owning this iPad Mini 6, what do I really think of it now? And is it worth buying today? Let's find out. Firstly though, I need to do something which involves this package here. Now, regular viewers again will know that I absolutely love the Paperlike screen protector. And they've made a new version which is in here. Quick unboxing. This is the Paperlike 2.1 and it features more evenly distributed nano dots for an even better feel, increased picture clarity, and it's compatible with those fantastic new iPads that have just been launched. But Paperlike has already completely transformed my iPad Mini for the better. I'll explain why in a moment, but I do need to try out this new version and let you know what it's like. Paperlike are also sponsoring this video, so thank you very much, guys. That doesn't influence my opinion at all of this product because I just love it and it's fantastic. It's just very nice of them to support the channel, so thank you. But what I need to do now is get this onto this, and I'll do one of those stupid time-lapse things with stupid music, just so you can see how easy it is to apply these on your iPad. Trust me, if I can do that, anyone can. Right, first impressions of this Paperlike 2.1 are very good. The first thing you notice is the screen clarity. Now, just like any screen protector, when you put a Paperlike on the screen of your iPad, it does change the look of the screen slightly. Now, I've found personally that the Paperlike has always been pretty good at that. I also like the kind of matte finish that it gives your iPad. But this one looks pretty much like there isn't a screen protector on here. I'm really impressed by this. That's really, really impressive. Secondly, the feel of your Apple Pencil on this new Paperlike 2.1 is really nice, actually. There's definitely more resistance. This is a lovely update. I tell you what though, the clarity of the screen with this on, like I say, it wasn't bad before at all, but it's just like it's not there. This is fantastic. Thank you, Paperlike. Right, let's talk about the positioning of this iPad in the increasingly bloated iPad lineup. And it is getting a bit silly. If we look at the list of iPads that you can buy now based on price, lowest to highest, you've got the iPad 9th generation at $369. You've then got the iPad 10th generation, the new one, at $499. Then the iPad Mini at $569. Then the iPad Air at $669. Then the 11-inch iPad Pro at $899. Finally, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro at $1,249. That's a lot of iPads. But the really nice thing about the iPad Mini 6 is that it kind of sits on its own. Whereas we've now got a massive amount of confusion between things like the iPad Air and the new 10th generation iPad, what separates those two? I've got a video and all sorts of things in the works about that, so stay tuned. But there's all that confusion there. Then there's a confusion about the iPad Air versus the 11-inch iPad Pro. They're all a bit too similar, but the iPad Mini has its own very unique place in that lineup. There's only one of these. There isn't an iPad Mini SE or an iPad Mini Pro. It's just the iPad Mini. And yes, it might only be slightly more expensive than the 10th generation iPad and only slightly less expensive than the iPad Air. But that doesn't matter because this is so different to those other two iPads. That makes it a really easy buying decision for anyone who wants the smallest and most portable iPad available. And I think that is the key selling point of this iPad Mini 6. If you know what you want from your iPad and you know that you want the small one, you just buy this one. That saves all the faffing about, all the watching videos, which is a shame for me, but you can just go out and buy it because it will be the one that you want. And judging by how popular my original review of this thing was and still is today, I'll link to it above, I think a lot of people are in that boat. So how much am I using this iPad a year in? Quite a lot. It's got 4 uses for me in this business. The first one being note-taking, which takes me back to Paperlike. Right from the start, I've always wanted this to be a digital note-taker, but I've never really liked the whole Apple Pencil screen thing. It's always felt a bit unnatural. Whereas Paperlike adds this layer of as you'd guess, nearly paper-like feel. There's just enough friction, just enough resistance to make it a really enjoyable writing experience. Now, a lot of my note-taking these days takes place on the keyboard in Apple Notes, but I do still have plenty of occasions where I need to jot things down. It's so handy just to grab this thing because it's so small, and the Apple Pencil 2 is such a fantastic accessory. Note down what I need to note down, and done. My app of choice is Notability, and it's just a fantastic way of keeping an archive of everything you've ever written down. The other use case for this iPad is for notes for these videos, so while I'm standing here talking to you, I do have notes to read from occasionally, and the iPad mini is the best device I've found just to quickly glance at those notes. The third use case is media consumption, so if I'm watching YouTube in bed or chilling out having some lunch, using the iPad mini for that is just the perfect size. And my fourth and final use case for this is really important, and it involves this case and something over there. So this is a Pitaka case, which looks like a normal iPad mini case. You just put your iPad mini in here. The difference is that inside here we have a little USB-C connection. Plug that in there and then put it onto the stand over here, like so. I have this permanent iPad setup next to my studio display. And that does two things. It enables me to keep an eye on notifications for things like YouTube, social media, that sort of stuff. But also, this stand here keeps my iPad mini charged. And that's why it has that USB-C connection in the case. This entire setup is charging my iPad. And it does that a bit like MagSafe through this magnet on the back. It's again, a bit like the Paperlike, it has completely changed the game for me with this iPad mini. I'll put a link in the description to this and the Paperlike 2.1 just so you can go and check them out. Of course, we're going to be due a new iPad mini 7 at some stage. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think possibly we'll see one next year, which does beg the question, what would I want from the next version? And the good news is there's not very much. The design is now as it should be. The screen is pretty good. The only thing I'd say about the screen really, and it's got nothing to do with jelly scrolling. If you've heard about that, ignore it. It's not a big deal. You don't notice it. The one thing you do notice, the more that we get phones and other iPads that have ProMotion, is the lack of a high refresh rate. Now this is a very fast iPad, it's got no issues with power, but because it's got that 60Hz display, when you go from using an iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max for instance, to using this, it feels slightly more sluggish. That is a shame, but I do think we'll start to see ProMotion coming down the ranks, so I do think the next version of the iPad mini will have that. The next thing is Face ID. I've never been a fan of having the Touch ID sensor on the power button up here. The iPad Air is the same, as is I think the iPad 10th generation. It just doesn't feel as natural even as the original Touch ID button that was on the front, and it's certainly not as natural as Face ID, so that would be a very nice upgrade next time. Another camera would be quite nice because the size of this iPad makes it quite a tempting device to carry around all the time, which means you might use it more for photography. And at the moment we just get the one wide angle. It'd be nice to have, I think personally, the telephoto zoom. The big one for me though is a Magic Keyboard. I've talked about this before. I would love to see a Magic Keyboard for the iPad mini 6. That might sound ridiculous, like, why on earth would you want to sit there typing on a tiny little screen? Well, I wouldn't be writing novels on this or even blog posts really. I'd love just to have that option of using a proper keyboard that is attached to this, that attaches magically via the magic stuff in the Magic Keyboard, and just enables me to get through emails and notes and things much quicker. Imagine taking this down to your local coffee shop, opening up your Magic Keyboard and bashing away a few emails. I don't even think it needs a trackpad. I don't think there'd be enough room for a trackpad. Let's just have a keyboard that attaches magnetically, and be done with it, please, Tim. I think it's missing that big time. And lastly, more colour options, more exciting colour options. That is the one thing I love about the 10th generation iPad. I think those colours look fantastic. So the big question, is the iPad mini 6 still worth it today? Yes, big time. And in fact, I think if you're considering that 10th generation iPad they launched last week, I'd go for the iPad mini instead. And okay, you don't get those really cool colours, but you do get compatibility with the Apple Pencil 2, which is a big deal, and also you get a better screen. It's also a really interesting iPad, I think, and I know it's got a massive fan base. And I think that's partly because of its size, but also because it's got that elusive Apple magic that is absent in so many of their new products. It isn't cheap, and there are some minor niggles like I've mentioned, but none of that stuff should dampen your enthusiasm for this iPad. Put it this way, if I didn't have this one now, I'd go out and buy one today. If you want to see what I thought about the 10th generation iPad, the new iPad Pros, and the new Apple TV, keep watching for a link to my full reaction video.